from the great state of New Mexico, the land of enchantment, rich in history, beauty, and culture. Its counties offer almost as much diversity in the things to do and see as the industries that drive their respective economies. From the national laboratories in Los Alamos to the oil fields of Eddy and Lee counties in southeastern New Mexico, from the gypsum dunes of White Sands National Park to the Albuquerque International Balloon Festival, our natural and man-made treasures are vast. One such treasure is the County of Sierra. Located just 2 hours south of Albuquerque, Sierra County is home to Sheriff Glenn Hamilton. In addition to playing host to the state's largest man-made reservoir, Elephant Butte Lake, Sierra County recently became headquarters to the only purpose-built spaceport in the southwest United States, Spaceport America. Its anchor tenant, Virgin Galactic, brings the promise of jobs to the area as they prepare to offer commercial space travel to those who dare and can afford it. Although it's the 12th largest of New Mexico's 33 counties, only 12,000 citizens regularly occupy its 4,200 square miles. During holiday weekends, however, Sierra County's numbers have been known to exceed 150,000 when the waters of Elephant Butte Lake are at their normal levels. Maintaining order can be quite a daunting task for Sheriff Hamilton and his crew of only 12 sworn deputies. When Sheriff Hamilton isn't watching his deputies take down drug dealers in the community, he can be found running down violators on the waters of Elephant Butte Lake, or perhaps at the elementary schools, educating our youth on the dangers of methamphetamine. On select weekends, you're likely to find him entertaining our military veterans with some of the local musicians at the State Veterans Home located right here in Truth or Consequences.
We might be poor, but we're proud, and we're living the best way we know how. We ain't got much, we don't want your pity, or we're country poor and country proud.
He currently serves as the legislative liaison for the New Mexico Sheriff's Association, and every year since first elected in 2015, he has joined many of his fellow sheriffs in Santa Fe to battle harmful and unconstitutional legislative proposals. Well, that bill just got shot down, sheriff style. For the most part, it's a quiet little county. Ranching and farming take up most of our time here, not unlike most of the rural areas of New Mexico. At least that's the way things went until February 2020. Like many of the blue states throughout the country, New Mexico's response to the coronavirus was equally as restrictive. And to the citizens of Sierra County, the response was downright draconian. Order after order, the citizens of New Mexico helplessly watched as their freedoms and liberties were stripped away. Week after week, New Mexicans wondered what would be shut down next.
I went to the sheriff's office, Sheriff Glenn Hamilton. I praise God for his life, because when I sat down, I voiced my concerns simply about the Constitution. That's what this is about. Just, anybody still believe in it? Come on, people already died for it.
I was highly concerned when Pastor Cooper relayed to me that the church had received a message from the state police via voicemail that they had determined his church to be non-essential and that he would have to close the doors down.
The general attitude at that point, we had made a decision, though churches were closing in different areas across the nation. We felt like we had heard from God. It's God's lighthouse. We've got to keep the lighthouse open.
And the orders kept coming. And orders kept coming. And kept coming.
And I was very pleased and very honored that our county sheriff is more than willing and without any hesitation says, I will stand for constitutional rights in this county.
It was right before Easter weekend when I was contacted by one of the local reverends at the New Hope Revival Church here in Truth or Consequences. And his concern was that the governor had issued an order in essentially shutting down the churches.
And the orders kept coming and kept coming. Orders kept coming.
Well, there was a sudden transition. I believe a decision was made by the governor that really threw a lot of people off. They were not anticipating this spilling over into the church, but it was the eve of Easter. You've got churches across New Mexico that have prepared for that Super Bowl Sunday, believing for the lost to come in and we could preach the gospel freely. We're in America. But suddenly on that eve, her order began to shift. She changed the order. The places of worship were no longer exempt. And she followed up with that transition by sending out an alarming text message that hit the entire state. It hit every cell phone. It was an emergency alert. Normally you'd see an Amber Alert of some sort, but this particular alert was sent on assignment to address the church. And within that alert, it said emergency alert, stay home, not even church is safe.
The past two legislative sessions where I was appointed as the legislative liaison for the New Mexico Sheriff's Association. And our number one fight was the Second Amendment and the attack that we were having on the Second Amendment. And our lawmakers up there trying to take away our God-given rights. See, these aren't just rights in the Constitution that our founders sat down and said, you know, it'd be cool if we could do this. No, what they realized was that these aren't rights that the government can give you. These aren't rights that your neighbor can give you. These are rights that God gave you. These are rights that every man, woman, and child is born with.
And I'll never forget his courageous, bold stance in that moment where he looked me right in the eye and he said, Pastor, I will stand with you even if that means I have to go to jail. I am here to defend the people, and I'm going to support your constitutional right to have church.
And I was scouring the governor's orders to try to find some type of an out, some type of a loophole, something that perhaps maybe she omitted. And I found a little provision in her order that indicated law enforcement were exempt or had been exempted from her mass gatherings restrictions.
That he was here to stand with them and really be any barrier needed to make sure that tyrannical governor does not overstep the boundaries and government is not able to conflict with our First Amendment right.
So in looking at the governor's order, I realized that, if this pandemic turned out to be this terrible thing that everyone was proclaiming it to be, that there was a likelihood it was going to affect my office potentially. One of my deputies could have been infected. I've got a small department. It would completely run its course and could potentially cripple my ranks. 14-day quarantines with just one exposure could potentially take out my entire staff.
Our sheriff, not only did he address our congregation, made them feel extremely comfortable. We are in America, and so they felt very comfortable knowing that our sheriff was here. Not only was he instructing them in their rights in the Constitution, but would later stand with us and deputize our entire church.
Ladies and gentlemen, will you please raise your right hand? I state your name. Having been appointed to the position of Special Deputy. New Mexico law allows the sheriffs to issue special deputizations to citizens in good standing in order to help him out in quelling riots and maintaining the peace.
I believe that one act that was unprecedented, I believe it was and is still today a historical moment where it bonded us all together. There was a spirit of unity at that moment. We knew we had law enforcement standing with us, but we also had the body of Christ, having come together and being deputized. That also, I believe it sent just a clear signal to the community, if there ever was an outbreak, that this church was willing to be supportive and step into any role. It wasn't just some act of deputizing so that we could be outside of the order. It certainly served many different benefits, but we were also willing to serve in the midst of a pandemic. But we are honored and excited today. During that time, we can say there were 0 COVID-19 cases that came out of New Hope Revival Church.
Sierra County Sheriff Glenn Hamilton. When the going got tough, this tough sheriff stood on the Constitution.